Senator Tom Tiffany is my very special guest today here at the DrydenWire studios. Senator, thanks for coming in.
It's good to be here.
First of all, congratulations. February, the primary, congratulations. I can't remember what your percentage was. What was it that you won by?
To be precise, the February 18th election, 57.5% to 42.5%, 15 percentage points, and really appreciative of all the people that supported me and the decisive victory that we had. But also, kudos to a good race that Jason Church ran, and he was very magnanimous that evening.
Yeah.
When the race was over, gave a call, said, "Tom, you've got my full support," and he certainly put that out on social media the following day. I wish Jason nothing but the best.
Sure. Out of curiosity, did you think that the 57.5 points, right? 7.5 point, more or less than what you thought? I mean, I suppose going into this as running for something, you never want to. It's like, I don't even know if I'm going to win. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, a win is always a win. I thought we put together a really good campaign. I expected to win by double digits, but probably a little bit more than what we thought. I mean, one of the great advantages that I had in that race is, and it is an advantage going into the general election also, is about a quarter of the district knows who I am. They have voted for me before multiple times, and that really does make a difference. I have that group of people that are very they know who I am, and they've voted for me in increasing numbers every election that I've ran in. I mean, from the very first time that I ran, when I lost my first election, only getting 47% of the vote for state senate, to the last one that I ran in 2016, when I got 63% of the vote. Every election, I've gotten more votes. So those people really know me well.
Wow.
And that's a big advantage.
Well, I would think so. And you've been now the senator in the 12th Senate? 12th Senate District. You've been there for how long now?
Just completing my second term. This race is up in 2020, and I've already filed my papers of non-candidacy. Regardless of what happens, I will not be running for state senate in.
But you could. I mean, you could have.
I could have. Yes.
But you decided that's it. It's Congress or bust.
Well, it was more. I think for most of us that are elected officials, we should set self-term limits, that we should just serve X amount of time. I mean, I've always looked at it as however long I serve, I'm going to serve until I feel like I'm having a positive impact. I mean, whether I was on a Chamber of Commerce board, on the Oneida County Economic Development Commission, all those things, as long as I felt like I'm giving something and I've got some value with the input that I'm giving to the organization. And I mean, that's how I've always viewed it. I spent my career building, owning businesses, and I've never looked at politics as being a career.
Sure. Well, I want to kind of transition now, because just a couple hours ago, Governor Evers issued to DHS2, the stay-at-home order. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but you probably have some basic, understanding of what that is, just given the fact that we went from 50 down to 10, so it's kind of similar there. What are your overall thoughts on this? Are we overreacting here? I should ask you that first. Are we overreacting?
So first of all, I think there's been some important steps that have been taken to make sure that we protect the public, and that's really important, to make sure that those people that are most vulnerable, that they are protected, and especially our healthcare workers. We really need to keep that in mind as we go forward. And we're going to talk about the federal stuff, I think, in a few minutes.
Yeah, I would love to talk about that as well.
Certainly at the state level, I mean, we need to make sure that people are protected, but we also need to make sure that the cure isn't worse than the disease. And we've been going along with Governor Evers in the legislature. He has the unique authority as the governor to be able to do many of these executive orders, and he does have that authority under the law. And so we've been going along with him. And on last Friday, he said that he was not planning on doing a shelter in place, which they're calling it they're calling it safer at home. It's really, I believe, a euphemism. This is shelter in place that he is talking about. So he said he wasn't going to do that. And then he told our legislative leaders again Sunday that he was not going to issue this order. And then Monday morning, he at 9:30 announced that without any heads up to the legislature or anybody. And that was really disappointing because we had been going along working with him, because that's what the public expects at this point. They want us to work together. My recommendation would have not been to go to shelter in place. I think it really is a draconian measure. Some of the other things that he's done, maybe you can make a case for that, and let's work through the process. But I really do think that this is an extreme measure that he has taken now, and but he has the authority to do it, and he's doing it.
I know a lot of people had some concerns yesterday after he had announced on Twitter, and then I think on Facebook as well. And I was surprised because I just happened to be going through Twitter at almost the exact moment that he put all this stuff out. I'm like, oh, usually we get a press release,
yes,
and maybe some information. I know there was some concern of almost a not a panic thing, but there wasn't a lot of details. It's just, I'm going to do this tomorrow. Do you think maybe it would have been best to, why don't we wait until we actually know everything, then let's send that out? What would you have advised them if he had asked for your advice?
Yeah, it fostered panic and confusion, and primarily you would say it fostered confusion, which leads to the panic. People, they go, okay, I'm now expecting the worst. And I was getting a lot of phone calls from people saying, okay, what does this mean, especially for business people? How am I going to manage my business? What's this going to look like? Am I an essential business, and all the rest? So you had no details getting out there by the governor. And so it really leads to, if not panic, certainly significant confusion. And that's a real problem. You don't want to do it that way. And so now today they've put more meat on the bones as far as, what this means and all the rest. But a lot of damage was done there.
Yeah, we, like yourself, tons of messages. And it's, well, where's the rest? I mean, you just put a lot of Twitter things in. And like, well, that's where he announced it. I don't know anything either. It's, well, there has to be more. But if there is something out there, we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's right. Another thing that I'm wondering, okay, what is the enforcement authority on this? Okay, how is that going to work? So you have all these questions that were out there, and yet, even with the order clarified more today on Tuesday, it's still, I still think there's a lot of uncertainty out there.
I think so, and especially in small towns. I talked to a few law enforcement officials over the last probably 48 hours. Well, actually, probably the last week. What is that enforcement piece? And, without getting too much detail, there is kind of that's not, if we see something big or dumb, or somebody does something and that calls us, we'll look into it, but we're not really going to be driving around looking for these things.
Yeah, when I talked to a local sheriff yesterday in northern Wisconsin, he said, we got a lot bigger things to do in regards to crime, drugs, all the rest that we have to deal with before we're going to go to a business and say, hey, you know what, your lights are on, we're going to... we're going to throw the handcuffs on you. So, it's led to a lot of confusion.
You have a fiscal background, right? I mean, you're on the, what is it called? The Joint?
The Joint Finance
Committee. And that's kind of your one of your passions.
Yes.
What impact financially on the state, in the 7th Congressional District, up north here, is this going to have?
Yeah, it's going to have really a big impact. And this is an excellent question because it's going to be the next thing that we have to deal with. What happens next from here? And we're going to see that. So we're waiting for the federal government to, which we're going to get to in a minute. We really have to see what they're going to do for a package to help individuals and states be able to get through this, because it's largely, this is something that's out of people's control, what has happened here, and we do look to the federal government. So we're anxious to see if that bill can get done in Congress that is supposed to bring some relief to individuals and the state. And so there's a couple good things here. One, we have almost $2 billion in our unemployment compensation fund in Wisconsin. For people that remember 6-7 years ago, our unemployment compensation fund was drained and was in the red after the recession of 08-09. We had to dig our way out of that, and we did. And it's some of those tough decisions we made 7 or 8 years ago with Governor Walker and the legislature to get that turned around, and we did. And thank the Lord we did, because now we have a fund that's there in the black that we're going to be able to tap into. Now, unfortunately, we're going to see that go down rapidly. And that's why it's another reason to be concerned about how long is this going to go on. I mean, that's the question I'd pose to Governor Evers. How long are you going to do this? Because you've made the choice to effectively shut down the state of Wisconsin. And so, good thing we have some money there. How long it lasts is another question. Also, we do have a surplus in the budget. I suspect that's going to go really fast also. But fortunately, we turned around Wisconsin's finances in the last 7 to 8 years. We're in much better shape than most other states.
Well, let's get to the legislative things that are happening in Congress. What is your opinion on what they're doing right now? Are they doing enough? Are they not doing enough?
So I think there's a $1.8 billion package that the Senate put together, and they worked together on a bipartisan basis until Sunday night when Speaker Pelosi came over to the United States Senate, which actually is a rare thing. They usually do not cross houses like that. Each one takes care of their business. She came over, spoke with the minority leader, Chuck Schumer, and said, we're not going to vote for this bill. And so they shut down that bill, the $1.8 billion package that was put together to be able to help people with their unemployment insurance, to make sure those that in the hospitality industry and other businesses that they're going to be able to get their unemployment checks because there's a backstop there to put more money into unemployment insurance. And also there was a loan program in there for small businesses, and that's I hear a lot from small businesses.
Well, I mean, the 7th Congressional District is made up of small businesses.
Yeah, like the DrydenWire. And yeah, no doubt about it. So that's that bridge for both employees and employers to be able to get through this rough patch here that's going to last a few months, maybe a little bit longer, but it's going to help them to be able to get through that. And what we saw was Speaker Pelosi and Senator Schumer put a stop to it and say, we are going to put out a different bill.
Why do you think they did that?
And if you look at one of the quotes from the number 3 ranking member in the House of Representatives, James Clyburn, he said, this is an opportunity to, this isn't a precise quote, but this is an opportunity to change America to our vision. And so you have people that are using this for ideological purposes when the public just wants them to focus on, let's deal with this pandemic that's out there. Let's deal with the coronavirus problem that we have in this country. Let's stay focused on that. And they're putting all this other stuff in there. I mean, they have a thing in there for cash for clunkers for planes in Speaker Pelosi's project in her bill. Cash for clunkers for airplanes. She has something in there to implement the Green New Deal for the airline industry. In other words, is going to hamper them in being able to get back on their feet. I mean, talk about kicking people when they're down. I mean, it's going to be very costly to them. She's putting in all these things that have nothing to do with controlling the coronavirus and getting us past this real problem that we have at this point, trying to start up our economy once we get through the peak of the coronavirus. They're putting in all kinds of stuff that has nothing to do with helping the American people. It's all about changing the way that we live, and it's ideological and it's wrong, and they should not be doing that.
You've been in politics for a while. Is this something that you've seen in Madison? Is this just kind of it's the game, right? If you really can't just kind of all agree on one thing, you kind of have to have your own victory. Is that kind of what this is we need our victory? We need to say something that as Democrats, we didn't like it, because if Republicans or Democrats came to Republicans and said, this is what we want to do, you just can't say, okay, good idea. It's, well, we got to put our spin on it too. Is that part of it?
I don't know the power plays that go on out in Washington, D.C., but it's wrong. And it's part of the reason that I'm running is because we need leadership out in Washington, D.C. And I hope that we can win back the House of Representatives as Republicans this year, because it's clearly being shown to the American people now what Nancy Pelosi and under her leadership with others like Representative Clyburn and Senator Schumer, what they will do. They will follow their ideology first, even before what should be done for the American people, and set aside the partisanship And there's certain times that you've got to set aside the partisanship. I believe war is one of those cases, and I think this is one also where you have this pandemic that's the fault of no one here in the United States, and we need solutions right now. We need people to be able to get back on their feet, to be able to get their unemployment checks, for businesses to be able to get loans, and they're playing politics with it. That's just wrong. We need leadership. That's why I ran back in 2010 for the state legislature. We had a $3 billion deficit. Businesses were fleeing the state of Wisconsin. We had almost double-digit unemployment. And I had run small businesses my whole life. We needed that leadership. I went in with like-minded people, and we fixed Wisconsin's finances. And the same thing is needed out in Washington, D.C.
If you were in Congress right now, if you were a representative of the 7th District, what would you want to see happen? What would you be championing?
Yeah, I would stay focused right now. I would be focused on making sure we can get through this rough patch. First of all, let's make sure and protect people's health and safety. Let's make sure that we have all the equipment that our healthcare providers need, the masks, the ventilators, all these things that they need to be able to do their jobs. Let's make sure the testing kits, let's make sure that all those things are getting done. And we're seeing good progress. By the way, one of the things I really give President Trump credit for, he said, we got to make sure the private sector is fully engaged here and that they're going to work. And we're seeing the private sector really step up right now and do good things, because you can't rely just on government at this point.
Right.
And so I would say focus on those things. Make sure that the public is safe. Make sure that our healthcare workers are safe, that they have the equipment that they need. And then once we get through this, let's make sure that people are getting their unemployment checks. Businesses have that bridge loan to be able to get them through this rough patch. Let's take care of those things. And let's not leave the partisanship behind for a little while here. There'll be a time for that in the future, but let's leave it behind now for a few months.
Sure. Is this impeding people's freedoms? I've seen that a lot on social media, and a lot of people that I respect on both sides of the aisle, probably a little bit more, obviously, on the Republican side, where a lot of these decisions that are being made may be impeding our freedoms.
Yeah, I mean, when you're being told that your business is going to be closed down, that you don't get to open it, and government says these are the things that you can do with your business, I mean, that's clearly impeding people's freedom. It's all a matter of the trade-off that's involved. And that's why I disagree with Governor Evers going to this shelter-in-place order. I believe at this point that he's gone too far. I believe that the cure now, you certainly could argue that we were at that point last week, but clearly now I believe we're at the point where the cure is worse than the disease in Wisconsin.
How do you think, you had referenced Trump, how do you think that he did? What is your opinion on from when this first started to where he is right now? How do you think he handled that?
I think he's done a pretty good job. I mean, you look at the initial action that he took, the end of January, was to close travel from China. And he took a lot of grief for that, including some people who are now saying it on the other side that, hey, you didn't close this down soon enough. Those same people were saying that, this is racist what you're doing and things like that. He took decisive action right at the beginning. And so you're doing all this stuff in real time. I think the other thing that he did quite well is he said to the private sector, we need you. We need you to create the new testing kits, all that stuff. And you're seeing some really good stuff happening at this point. I think there's a company called Cepheid out of California that I read about over the weekend that they now have a test that you can get the results in 45 minutes. I mean, so there's been days-long waits for people to be able to get tested. This company, from what I understand, is going to have a test here real soon that they're shipping that you can get the results, not in days, but the same day.
Sure.
And actually that's happening here in Wisconsin too, down at Gunderson Clinic working with UW-La Crosse, where they're getting a test that can be done in-house and you can get the results very rapidly.
Wow. Do you think this is flattening that proverbial curve that we hear so much about?
So we're seeing, I think the big question at this point is we're doing a lot more testing now. Is that what is driving the numbers up?
Sure.
And I think the answer is yes to that, but it's really, we have to have more testing.
Yeah.
Have to have more testing, because one of the things that South Korea did is they have a lot more testing that they were doing. They were able to identify their hotspots. And, so I think some people, including some of your listeners, may say, well, you're just critical of Governor Evers. If you were in his shoes, what would you do? And I think one of the most important things that we can do as policymakers is make sure that we have good data and that we make decisions based on good data. Mm-hmm. And I kind of believe at this point, with this shelter-in-place order, it's a shotgun approach. And we should be, as policymakers, making decisions with a little bit more precision. And we know now, based on data, who is really affected by it, who is in most danger of this. And it's clearly people over 60, 70 years old. So should we be doing this to the entire population? I think those are some of the questions that need to be asked at this point and answered, because perhaps we can be more precise with the policy prescriptions and not do just this shotgun approach that shuts down entire industries like, the hospitality industry, restaurants, bars, whatever. We've largely taken a shotgun approach in Wisconsin, and I think we could be more precise in our policy prescriptions.
And to be clear, there are people that are younger that have been getting this, but you're absolutely right. The overwhelming majority still are people at 6 year older, and each decade over is more susceptible to that.
And when I talk to people, including business owners, I mean, they're doing a really good job of, if they have people that can work from home or whatever, they're having them work from home.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those, I've talked to a lot of businesses around here, and they've already kind of put in their own plans before. It was almost like this libertarian approach, right? I don't need government. We realize, and we also want to help flatten the curve. 2 weeks ago, these things were already in place. Multiple businesses in our area already had plans. We're already implementing all of those plans. And again, I'm not saying that they should or shouldn't have with Evers doing it now. Time will tell if this was overkill, if it wasn't, if it was good or bad. We just don't really know right now. But I do know that at least in a small town that we're in Spooner and in Shell Lake, these plans were already put in place. And there's a lot of options that they were already doing to begin with.
Well, for a lot of us in northern Wisconsin, we live social distancing.
Yeah,
that's part of the reason why we live up here.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I think it goes to the point is that, okay, if Milwaukee and Madison say, hey, we got to go to shelter in place, they should have the ability to do that. I mean, if their mayors say that that's the approach that we need to take, that's why I think you really got to look at the data. Who is this really affecting? Is this really affecting some of the rural areas and all the rest? And so you should have some restrictions in place, perhaps, but do they need to be as draconian as you would do, for example, Milwaukee and Madison, where they have far more international travelers that are going through their communities with major airports?
So what impact is this now, especially with the order today, is that going to have on your campaign? Because you have an election coming up, May 12th. Yeah. You have an election coming up. So is election, is that an essential campaigning?
I'm not going to press that. I'm not going to press that. So it really is a little bit like a fish being out of water when you can't shake hands and you can't go see groups.
I know. And when you walked in this morning, I'm like, I owe you a handshake.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way it is now. And when you can't shake hands and you can't meet with groups, that takes away a whole lot of opportunity. But we're finding other ways. I mean, we're making sure that people know about our website, Tiffany for Wisconsin. They can find ways to volunteer. They can put out postcards. They'll be able to put out signs and write letters to the editor. There's a lot of things that can be done. And actually, it kind of goes back to some of the old traditional campaigning. And, of course, social media is really important also through this whole thing.
Sure. So what impacts? How do you see this impacting? So is it a situation where you're no longer going to be able to go out? Because maybe even if you decide, which I don't know where this falls. I actually haven't read through all the 16 pages of this stuff. Because even if you decide I'm still going to go and do something, who's showing up? So is it kind of have you made the decision of, we're pretty much finished in terms of campaign trail per se?
I think you have to look at who are the people that I'm going to meet? And I want to make sure that I'm not compromising anyone's safety. That's how I view it. It's not about me. It is about the people that I would go meet, and I don't want to compromise anybody's safety.
No, I totally get it. April 7th election is coming up.
2 weeks away.
You're right. And I thought someone had said that Governor Evers would be able to change that. And then I found out quickly that wasn't necessarily true, because it's a federal election as well. So Governor Evers doesn't have the power to do the April 7th. Do you think that the April 7th election is going to happen? And if so, is this going to be a write-in only? Like we don't want anyone to even show up.
So I think as far as the legalities of it, I believe the governor has to go through the legislature because much of this is in statute as far as our election law.
Okay.
And so it would require changes by the legislature. Now, he could certainly try and give it the constitutional test if he wants to. He has been saying the right things about this, that we should plan on having the election. We should go ahead. And I think for people have options in regards to being able to vote, and people are very aware ahead of time what is going on out there. So you're seeing a significant spike in people asking for absentee ballots, and that's a great thing.
Yeah.
I really encourage people, get that absentee ballot, vote. You can request an absentee ballot through Thursday, April 2nd. You got plenty of time to get one. And then also, you can in-person absentee vote. And some people say, well, that's part of what I want to do. I don't want to interact with. But if you go to your local clerk or contact your local clerk, there's very few people that are in that office right now. There's very limited exposure that you would have if you wanted to in-person absentee vote. So that option is there also. Yeah. The mail-in operation or option is there also. And you can get that ballot a couple different ways. You can go to My Vote Wisconsin. So you can just get that online. Or you can contact your local municipal clerk or county clerk, and they'll be able to get you that absentee ballot. I really encourage people to absentee vote.
Sure. Do you think we should have the April 7th election?
I do believe so.
Okay.
I believe this is, talk about a fundamental of our democracy. So think about over 200 plus years, the challenges this country has faced and met. We've always had our elections.
Sure.
This is a fundamental to a democracy. Think about it. We have all kinds of local communities that are waiting now. I believe it's county board elections this year as well as municipal elections. Yeah. And it's important that those people be put in place. They're decision makers too, including through this whole coronavirus crisis. Yeah. So it's important that I think we have these elections so those people can be installed into office and be able to do their job. And then on top of it, we have a Supreme Court race with Justice Kelly running. Yeah. And it's important that we be able to have that election to make sure we know who that Supreme Court justice is going to be. So I do think that we should go forward with it.
And the numbers will be down, I would assume. Obviously, if people can't go, or if that does come into a situation where people aren't going, either they can't go to vote or they just don't want to, whether they have done an absentee ballot or not. I'm assuming the numbers might be a little bit down, but we'll know. Honestly, I can't wait to see the numbers on April 7th. I'm really excited to see what that's actually going to do, because you're right. Everybody knows about this already. This hasn't been a secret. It is plastered everywhere. Yeah. Do it now, because you just don't know. You just get it. Your absentee ballot. If you know who you want to vote for, just do it now and finished. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, the numbers are really growing too. People looking for absentee ballots, and that's a great thing. The other thing that I would throw out there is you young people that are out there, parents, grandparents, tell your kids and grandchildren this is a great opportunity to participate in our democracy. So Chris and I have 3 daughters, and they all could work at the polls. They can't all vote, but they could all work at the polls, and we are really urging them to help out in our county. So if there's a young person, let's say you're home from college. We got 2 daughters are going to be home from college here, and they can go work at the polls, and we're really urging them to do that. And you don't have to just do it in your local municipality that you live in. For example, I live in the town of Minocqua, Oneida County. They can work there. But they can work in any municipality in Oneida County.
Oh, sure.
So I just say, parents and grandparents, if you got kids and grandchildren, get them out there to help, because, there's a lot of elderly people that are not going to work in this election, and rightfully so. They need to make sure they stay safe. This is a great opportunity for kids to be able to help out here and be able to have our elections happen on time.
We actually just published something this morning on DrydenWire for the Wisconsin Elections Commission about Wisconsin needs. People to work at the polls, and they have this very long list of how to do it and everything that it entails. And if you have a job, can you leave your job for a while to do this? Well, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, there's a lot of people probably aren't going to be working at that time. So this could be an opportunity for them as well.
All I got to say is DrydenWire is always ahead of the curve.
Yeah, buddy. What else is going on? I think we're almost up against the clock here.
Yeah.
Anything else going on? Anything else you want to talk about?
We're planning on the May 12th election happening, and we're getting our message out, social media. Tiffany for Wisconsin, people can find information about the campaign. So it'll certainly end up being a non-traditional campaign that we're doing here, but we're still delivering that message and all the rest. And I just keep telling people that if you want real leadership out in Washington, D.C., which we need more than ever, someone who's been a small business person who's made those tough decisions through trying times at times and made tough decisions in the state legislature, been willing to do it, taken the heat for it at times, but it's showing now that we've put Wisconsin in a much better place, and we're going to be able to weather this storm of coronavirus better than many other states. If you want somebody out in Washington, D.C. to make those decisions and make them in a smart manner, I'm the person to do it.
And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, somebody wants to contact you, they can just go to...
You just go to Tiffany for Wisconsin.
TiffanyWisconsin.com or org? I don't remember.
Just type in Tiffany for Wisconsin.
Just Google
use
it.
the number 4. Just use the number 4 and you're going to find it.
That's kind of our ongoing theme here. We never remember, so we just Google it. Just Tiffany, Wisconsin. Just Google it.
I can't remember if it's .com or .org.
I don't know.
Try one of them. Try one of them.
If you don't see my picture, it's the wrong one.
You'll be, you'll be able to get there.
Awesome. Senator Tiffany, thanks so very much for coming in. It's always a pleasure. You know what you should do? You should set up, because we have the ability, because we're also going to be kind of adjusting a little bit here too, even though media is exempt. But just like you, I don't want to get anyone sick. So we're actually going to be doing, at some point here, very soon, remote chats.
Yeah.
So instead of having people
That's
here,
terrific.
we're going to do something like that. So our program uses Skype, so you should download Skype. And when you do, let me know, and we'll have you back on.
Yeah, that sounds real good. I would just say finally to all of our listeners out there, be safe through this whole thing. I mean, we do have to take the coronavirus. We have to take that seriously. And I'm really hoping that our Congress will act really soon and end the partisan games out there and get that aid package out there, because we have a lot of people that are unemployed. Those numbers are growing rapidly every day. We have a lot of businesses that are not able to operate, that are going to need those bridge loans. We need to build that bridge to help people to be able to get through this tough time.
Awesome. Tom, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. All right, thanks, everyone. And we will, I think we'll be back next week or maybe the end of this week. We have a few other guests lined up. Like I had said before, we're going to start transitioning to some alternative ways to continue doing these things. So thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next week.